Hello, I'm Sevil Mikhailova.
And I'm Claude Salhani, and this is This Week in Focus. And this week we are focusing on a rather dark, somber, depressing subject.
This is a genocide of Azerbaijanis, which was committed almost 100 years ago.
97 years ago, exactly, to be exact. And on this anniversary, March 31st, the state of New Jersey in the United States has passed a resolution to recognize March 31st as Azerbaijani Genocide Day.
And before, Texas also issued a resolution to recognize this genocide because people were killed because they were Azerbaijanis, and their number is horrifying. And see, Claude, 700,000, this is a figure, including 30,000 killed only in Baku.
No matter how many the numbers, it's frightening. I mean, one is
even death of one person is a crime, but we are dealing with thousands now. Besides
New Jersey and New York, there's the state of Texas and Nevada that have also recognized Azerbaijan's genocide.
If we don't recognize and leave it just for history, it will be disrespect to memories of all those killed during these tragic events, and also it will be disrespect to the future generations.
Absolutely. The job of the future generations is to remember the past, never forget your history, because history repeats itself, and if we're not careful, we commit the same mistakes again. And we're joined by Tamerlan Vahabov, an expert in political science and international affairs. He is a graduate of Georgetown University in Washington, D.C., and an expert on some of these hard-to-understand issues, as the one we're going to discuss today, genocides. Mr. Vahabov, the state of New Jersey has officially recognized March 31st as Azerbaijan Genocide Day, on the 97th anniversary of the Azerbaijani genocide. It was a resolution introduced by an assemblywoman, Sheila Oliver, and New Jersey follows New York, that introduced a similar resolution in 2012, became the first state outside of Azerbaijan to legislatively acknowledge the Azerbaijani genocide as a historical fact. New Jersey issued similar legislative resolutions in 2013, and the Azerbaijani genocide has been recognized by individual official proclamation by the states of Texas and Nevada. So these are adding up slowly, but what good does it do in the long run? How does it change facts on the ground, if any? Why is this label so requested by some states that the people have been killed by the tens of thousands, sometimes by the millions, and it's a horrible thing. Yet what makes it different when you have labeled that massacre, that killing, that slaughter, the murder of tens of thousands of people, millions of people, a genocide?
Thank you very much for your question. Before I get back to your question, I'd like to thank Trend Agency for inviting me here and for the opportunity to share my views. Obviously, this is not the most exciting topic to talk about. It's a very sad topic.
Indeed.
But nevertheless, going back to your question, it is important, in my view, that states, United States and its separate states, not the United States as an institution, but a separate state, do gradually recognize the fact of genocide that was committed against Azerbaijani people. Why it is important? To be more specific, I think recognizing the genocide will, as you noted, it will not bring lives back, but it is important for us, today's generations, to understand what happened then, because history plays an important role in bridging the gaps between today's academia, policymaking, and what has been done before. Unfortunately, for the past 100 years, acts of genocide and crimes against humanity did not stop. And we were not able, as current generation, to stop it and to prevent it. So, in my opinion, it should be part and parcel of states' structural memory. And we can achieve that by recognizing it, by memorizing that, and by writing it down in our documents that we adopt and we recognize as states, no matter what country.
And what can be the ultimate contribution of this recognition of the genocide? So how do you think, will it contribute just to history, will it contribute to future generations, or will it contribute just to a political structure of any country?
A big part of the structural memory and the political structure of any country, it means more awareness raising. It means more information available to the public, and it brings the issue up for both academia and policymakers, because especially in the West, if you're talking about the United States and European countries, there is a very strong connection between academia and policymaking. This feeds as a solid foundation for policymaking in the future to design and architect their policies for the genocide. And I hope this will be a very important milestone in preventing and being proactive, actually, not to stop, but also to trace root causes of genocide and to prevent it at its embryonic stage.
So March 31st saw really very tragic events, and the history recognized these events. So recently, Gubam's grave, massive grave, was found, and it was officially opened. And people know that some century ago they committed, in fact, a massacre in Azerbaijan, and many Azerbaijanis were killed, they were tortured, and this is a fact. But why the countries massively do not recognize this tragedy as a genocide?
The fact is, this genocide issue and Azerbaijan's activity, Azerbaijan is a relatively new country, and it's 24 years of independence for the history is a blink of an eye. But despite this fact, Azerbaijan has been quite successful in bringing this issue up and making it more known and spread the word about it. The short answer would be it takes time. It takes time for hard evidences such as Guba evidences and the massacres that were perpetrated there to be known. And in order to do that, it requires a tremendous work by both foreign policy agencies of any country and diaspora, and this coordination and unification efforts take time and efforts for doing that. So it's a gradual process, but it's moving. On the positive side, we can see that it's moving and it's getting gradually recognized by American states, and hopefully this will translate into other countries as well. When we see this foundation laid more solid than we see today.
One of the problems that certain countries face in getting recognition to their genocides, to the genocide committed against them, take for example the Holocaust, that the German state was reluctant to admit to any wrongdoing because of financial implications. Do you think that plays a role here? I mean, if Armenia was to acknowledge the fact that they did commit a genocide, they would open the gates to all sorts of legal claims and financial requests and lawsuits of mega proportions. Do you think that plays a role in states refusing to admit that they committed something on that level?
Well, this is one of the factors that should be, as we can say, factored in, of course, because when we talk about Western democracies, it's an open system. It's a marketplace for political debates and bargains. And when we talk about the democratic system as it is, it is an open system. There are different players that can bring up various reasons and arguments for pro and cons, and for and against any lawsuit, any law that should be adopted in their view. So whoever is more successful in doing that, in basically lobbying their interests or in bringing this issue up, and by bringing up hard evidences, will be successful to win this in democratic societies. So probably the reason for some of the genocides to be recognized and some not are the results of how. This is a result of how active the diaspora members were and the governments of their respective countries of origin were supporting them. That's, I think that the main reason is this, the nature of the democratic system.
You've just mentioned the role of diaspora. Could you please speak in detail? So what can the diaspora specifically do to achieve the recognition for massacres?
Diaspora is an important tool especially when it comes to issues such as genocide, because it's an emotional issue and it's a historic issue.
Exactly.
Diaspora people are basically uprooted people that live outside of their country, of their country of origin, and sometimes they are like first and second and third generation that have been living in foreign countries, and for them it's an emotional and a very important issue to do that. And this tool should be utilized, should be used for doing that. And specifically, what it can be done. Diaspora members are usually residents or citizens of their respective countries where they live, despite their ethnic background. It goes beyond their ethnic background. So their citizenship allows them a direct and easy access, especially in Western Europe, in the United States, to policymakers, to government agencies, because there are clear channels of communications between citizens and the government members and policymakers. That's a very important asset, and they can build up various tools on these platforms, such as awareness-raising campaigns, general campaigns outside the street campaigns, outdoor campaigns, and door-to-door lobbying. All these tools are available to the citizens of these countries, and diaspora being a generation voice and emotional voice of the people who have been murdered as a result of acts of genocide can be very effective in doing that.
Let's speak specifically about the work of the Foreign Ministry, who is in charge of doing this policy.
Thank you. That's a very important question to note and to emphasize the role of the main coordinating body in international relations and on the international arena. This is the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan is like #1 exterior agency. On a multilateral level, the ministry has done tremendous work by doing sessions, workshops, and awareness-raising campaigns, working both on the multilateral level within committees and also door-to-door diplomacy with member countries, United Nations member countries, Council of Europe, and other OSCE and other international and regional organizations. So this is very important in streamlining and coordinating all the efforts, both diaspora within those countries and on a multilateral level that the state agency and foreign policy agency is active and is doing that. So this is a very solid foundation for all the policy making that Azerbaijan designs and architects to build its general design of bringing up the issue of genocide.
And also, when they deal with genocides, massacres, these massive killings, let's say, so we frequently hear the ideas that these matters should be left to historians. This is a matter of history, and the historians should be involved in this matter rather than politicians. Do you share this opinion?
I would rather disagree with that, because history as a discipline in itself, as an academic discipline, has transformed itself from being just a past records. It is an important social science discipline that is that cuts across other disciplines, and it is important right across the board. And it cuts across other disciplines such as security studies, international relations, political science, economics. And when we don't consider history, we don't have case studies. We don't have nothing to compare. And this is very important for us to trace back origins and to be able to compare and distill and boil down all the general issues that we have available, sporadic issues on genocides, and into one policy making. Of course, it is important as a backup information because we don't have. Fortunately, we don't have genocide every day. So this is an important information source for bridging the gap between the current events and what has been done before.
And also, you are a specialist, you are an expert on the national security issues. So how could you relate this recognition of massacres, genocides, these tragic events in the history with national security issues? Do you see any interrelationship between these two?
Of course, it goes down basically into the fundamentals of security. What is security? Security is a multidimensional issue that goes directly down to the value of human being. And genocide is a crime and felony perpetrated and committed against the human being, against the humanity, and it denies people their basic, fundamental, and natural right of living. Of course, this is a direct threat to the national security of any country, of any given country, because on its territory or on its adjacent areas, neighboring areas or neighboring countries, if people are being killed on a mass level, this is a security threat because it threatens directly human beings, and its ramifications go well beyond the boundaries of any given conflict, because it radiates into the region, into the national arena, and it involves a lot of actors and brings up other forms of crime that can be associated with the act of genocide. So this is a very complex issue, and it's a direct threat to national security of countries.
What do you think leads to something like a genocide? Is it obviously there's the hate factor of the other that is generated by the fear of the other, that is generated by ignorance of the other. Which comes first?
Well, I would rather group them, cluster these issues into two groups. First is, as you said, historic hate issues that have been accumulated in people's memories and have been passed into generations. This is more of an emotional side.
Yeah.
But there is another, I think, more important thing to consider is structure. The structure of states and state institutions and their capacity to handle conflicts. If state institutions are not strong, they're unhealthy basically, and they cannot cope with wicked problems such as interethnic tensions and conflicts, and they cannot mitigate them. They resort to violence, and they use various factors such as history, hate, and having a monopoly over media. They can easily create this rally around the flag effect and boost nationalism and nationalist moods among people, and start these horrendous acts of genocide, ethnic cleansing, or any forms of crime that is associated with armed conflict and violence. So structure, institutional structure, and state institutions are very important because their primary responsibility is to protect people. So if they cannot, then there is what we can see in the areas where we see conflicts and genocides.
Just to finalize our discussion, so how do you think, why they should recognize Azerbaijani's genocide committed by Armenians almost 100 years ago?
First of all, there is an emotional issue for us as Azerbaijanis because we have seen our past generations have seen that, and many of us have had family members who perished during that genocide, and this is a remembrance and an issue of respect for those who have fallen during that genocide. Second is it's part of the security regime internationally, I would say, because the crime and genocide committed against Azerbaijanis is not a small thing. It's around 700,000 people.
Right.
And this is very important generally for the security regime of the current international system to recognize genocide, which has hard evidences, such as Cuba, let's say, evidences that we have recently discovered, and other evidences that Azerbaijan have been able to discover and bring up. We have an undeniable fact of genocide committed on the territory of Azerbaijan, and this is a very good opportunity for countries to recognize it and to bring it in, and to mount it into the overall architecture of genocide prevention and be proactive on that.
Thank you. Thank you very much for joining us.
How to conclude such a program is difficult. There is so much to be said and so little time to say it. And no matter how much we say, there is still much left unsaid, and that will forever be unsaid. Let's just hope that we have a better tomorrow.
Goodbye.